Okay, welcome to this new lesson where we are going to take this design here and we are going to create our first prototype based on these two pages here. So right here is the download button. This is the call to action that we refer to as, the one action that we want a person to take, and we want to create a connection to it in the prototype tab. That will automatically shift the page once we play the prototype and after a person clicks on that button to this new page right here. Very simple in terms of prototyping. So we'll work our way up. We'll look at some of the different features and the different ways that we can present this new page. All right, so let's click on prototype. And in this tab, we can see we have interactions here. We can click plus here, or we can literally just drag this little plus icon coming from this download button to this artboard, or this frame rather. And as you can see, we have interaction details that pops up, and the first drop down menu is the action type. So what happens, what will initiate this action? Is it going to be a click? Is it going to be a drag, like where you're left clicking and just dragging? And we'll definitely experiment with that. Is it going to be while you're hovering, like your mouse over the element, or while pressing? So as you can see, there's quite a bit of ways to initiate these actions. There's also, you can press a key if you want to initiate an action based on that. And then we also have mouse enter, mouse leave, mouse down, mouse up. And the difference between like while hovering, for instance, and mouse enter, we'll see some of these differences. It's better for me just to show you rather than try to describe it. So for this, it's just going to be a simple on click. All right, then what happens? It's going to navigate to wherever we drug this over here to. And of course, it gives you the option of our artboards or our frames, and that just happens to be download because that's the only other frame that we have. Then there's also an animation section. We could see that we have by default selected instant. There's not going to be any type of transition. It's just going to be an instantaneous transition from that page to the download page. There's also smart animate, and we're going to play with some of this stuff as well. So let's just check out what this looks like right now with the default settings. So I'm going to click play. It brings up a new tab. And what I'm going to do, just to save our time, is we're going to move this over here. And then I'm also going to adjust this portion so we can see both of these at the same time. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on download brochure. And by the way, you can sort of notice, this is a little tip here. If you click anywhere inside of the actual frame in the prototype, it'll kind of outline any actionable areas that have been defined in the prototype section. So you can see the download brochure button kind of just highlights in blue. That way you can kind of quickly see where you can interact with that given prototype. So let's click it. There you go. Now you might be wondering, how do we get back to that previous page? Well, we have to create that connection as well. So for instance, if somebody clicks on maybe the logo, a common pattern for that is for them to go back to the main home page. So we'll just drag a connection from here, leave it with the same settings. And then, by the way, we don't have to refresh when we make these adjustments for the most part. We can just click this and we can go back and forth. All right, so let's take a look at some of the other options that we have at our disposal with these interactions. So when we go back, you'll see interactions up here. Clearly, we can have multiple interactions. So you can have a while hovering interaction along with a click interaction, or the other ones as well. So you can have multiple. So if we click on this, we'll get access to the details or the settings section of this given prototype. And so what we can do now is experiment. So dissolve. What does dissolve look like? All right, so it kind of just dissolves between the two. So it fades the opacity out and brings the opacity in with the download page here. So let's try Smart Animate. Now this one is very cool. So we click it and notice how the animation's different. Let's also change this to Smart Animate as well. So we'll change that, and you'll see how when we go back and forth, things are animating in an interesting fashion. So essentially what's happening is it's taking a look at all the elements on the initial frame, and based on where they're placed at in the next frame, it's going to transition them from one point to the other. It could do this with color. Clearly, it could do it with location. So if you can see this, the location of this little container is down here. If we click on brochure, notice how it's up higher on the download page, so it's going to move up. So it's doing that simultaneously across all of the elements. And it could also do this with scale, rotation, so you could do a lot of really cool things. However, I should say, and it's very important to note, that you confer with the front-end developer, whoever is responsible for taking this prototype and making it a reality in the browser. Sometimes achieving that all those interesting animations is a lot more difficult than what we do here in the prototype mode. So they may say, you know what, we're just going to keep it simple. We're just going to have no animations, and so you can just change those animation types to instant rather than anything else. So we have Smart Animate, and by the way, we also have easing options. So easing will affect how the animation occurs. So it might start in slow and then rapidly move up, or vice versa. You can also like ease in, out, and back. So what does that look like? So by the way, this is also the duration, of course, in 300 milliseconds. Maybe we'll change this to 600 milliseconds. And so what happens here? Notice when it comes to ease in and out back, things kind of go the opposite way for a second, and then they come back down. So it gives you a sort of a bounce effect, which is actually really cool. And all of this is customizable. You can create your own custom animation type here by clicking on custom. And you can see this is what ease in and out back looks like. It's actually coming underneath this bottom portion, which reverses the intended direction. And so you could play around with this and create your own animation types. More often than not, it's best to stick with, you know, just ease in, ease out, ease in and out, or something like that. Okay, so that in a nutshell is essentially, you know, the main type of prototype connections you'll be making between different frames and different pages or subpages of your apps. Now, of course, we have other different ways over here rather than just navigating to. You can open an overlay, you can swap overlay, you can close overlay. You could choose back, scroll to, and open link. So an open link will actually open up a link in the browser. What about back? Could we have used back instead for an actual type for right here rather than just dragging it back? Well, let's see. So if we take this, we choose this option right here. We choose back. What will happen? So let's click in here. And we'll choose back. There it goes. So it goes back to the previous artboard automatically. Now we're also going to, in the future lessons here as a part of this little mini course, we're going to take a look at these other interaction types right here, such as open overlay, swap overlay, and close overlay, scroll to as well. And not only that, we're also going to experiment with these interaction types of click, drag while hovering, keypad, etc. All right, so that's a good spot to stop here. So hopefully you understand, you know, what's happening so far at this point, and we will continue on in the next lesson.